Hello, all you heroes, villains, and innocent bystanders. Welcome to another episode of An Angel and Her Unicorn comic book reviews. I'm Alan the Unicorn, and sadly, I'm flying solo today. I have lost all my co-hosts. They have all abandoned me to their machinations and other plans and storms and other things that have happened in the great state of Oklahoma. It's sad, but it's going on. We're surviving. I will be spoiling the books for the week. I'm only going to do a couple this week, so if there's books that you haven't read, you may want to take a break and read them really quick. Come back and see me and let me spoil them or you can let me spoil them for you anyways. If you can, we would love for you to like, share, and subscribe our show. We'd love to have more people starting a conversation, more input, and definitely more books to read because it's really all I need is more stuff to read. But anyways, if you can, we would greatly appreciate like, sharing, subscribing, and turning on your bell notifications so you can be notified of the weekly videos that we post. At some point in my life, I will eventually have the descriptions of the titles below of each book. So if you want to, you can skip right to it. Otherwise, let's get started. And I read quite a bit this week with all the different couple number ones, couple books ending, couple books starting. So it's been kind of interesting hodgepodge of books that I read this week. The first one I'm going to start off with is Psi-Lords. It's by Valiant. It is one of their number ones. Writer is Fred Von Lent, and the artist is Renato Guades. So sorry. So this one starts off with a prison. They're in some type of prison, and they start to introduce their characters. There is one guy, and they all kind of have like a color combination that they're going with. This guy is like kind of the green guy. He's like a tank, a soldier, and they all are hearing this voice, and it's telling them that they are super. They're more than what they are. They seem to be. The second person they introduce is an African American woman. She's sitting in her thing, kind of meditating. She's starting to like get a self-awareness. They're all starting to get self-awareness from this voice in their head. The second guy looks like an Asian American, maybe. I'm not even sure if he's American or not, but Asian descent. He's kind of the yellow or orange guy. The African American woman is in like a yellow kind of outfit. And then there is a Caucasian woman in kind of a red outfit. And so they all kind of get labels. The green guy is kind of the tank or soldier. The African American woman is kind of the thinker. The Asian guy is more of a oh gosh, I don't even know how they describe him. He is an artisan, is what they call him, but it's kind of hard to describe what he ends up becoming. He kind of gets some powers later. They all get powers later on, and his powers are kind of more of a, I don't know, like a backup kind of character or backup kind of power. And then the other female is she is kind of like the rage of the group. I'm assuming that that's kind of what the red is about, is kind of like this color that invokes rage. They eventually escape. The orange Asian guy gets out. He gets some wings. He's flying around, and he's getting ready to take on the guards. The African American woman, she uses lightning and electricity and escapes her prison. The green guy gets these big giant fists like a Hulk. The red girl turns like invisible and gets these claws and takes out the guards. They end up kind of meeting up with each other and realize that they all have the same voice in their head. And they break into this one door that they're kind of meant to be in, or they feel like they need to go towards. And it ends up being that they find the guy that's in their head. It is this older guy. He's kind of getting experimented on, and they end up freeing him. But then he gets killed. So he gets killed. They kind of take over their own kind of wills and powers take over, and so they just kind of do what they're supposed to do, fighting these guards, and they kind of are talking to him and seeing where they want to go, and the African American woman realizes that the barcode on her arm is kind of information, tells them where they're supposed to be, or tells them who they are, kind of where we're supposed to go. It's kind of an encoded message. So she ends up reading that they're supposed to go to this ship and they need to go to this certain place. The Asian guy is trying to stop the other woman from like eviscerating this guard, which she's already done, but he's like, you really need to take it down a notch, and she's like, I don't care. So they end up finding out that there is some kind of outside them, is they're not quite in, like, they're on a planet. They're kind of outside in space because it looks like there's stars in this kind of celestial body outside. And they realize the guards that are holding them are some kind of aliens. All in all, this was kind of an interesting start. I don't know. It was very. I don't know if it was the best start to a book that I've ever seen. It was very much a trope and very. They start off in the situation, and they, step one, introduce the characters. Step two, create the, tell exactly your premise. It's very straightforward. There wasn't like any hiding of the premise at all. Like, it wasn't like you didn't know what they straight up told you. Like, it was just like, here's what we're doing. Here's the people we're doing with. Good luck. I don't know if I like that. Like, it was okay. Like, I wish they would have had a little more mystery to the characters. Not that you don't have mystery, like, you still want to kind of know about them, but honestly, you don't. It was just an odd start. Like, I'm not for sure it was the best one. I'm going to try number 2 just because this is I'm curious to see how they're going to go with this. Enough to keep going with it for a number 2 issue. But all in all, like, I don't think it was the best number 1 ever. Or, I mean, I don't even think it was a good number 1. It was just okay. The art is very, like, watercolor painting and sketchy. So, parts of it were pretty, and then parts of it I kind of didn't like because it's so hard to tell who's kind of what, and there's a lot of impressionistic art style where they don't really do a lot of detail, and then in some areas it gets hyper detailed, so the art wasn't my favorite thing ever. So I don't know. It's a hard book to judge. It's just it was weird. I'm hoping that it gets better, especially the story. Maybe has a little bit less. Here's what we're doing, da 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 da, and a little bit more of a mystery behind it. But we shall see. Who knows? It's intrigued me enough to get number 2, so we will see. I would give it probably a 3 out of 5 unicorn horns. I really not for sure if everybody will like it. I think it'll definitely be a book where it'll have a specific audience. Let's see. The next one I'm going to do is Rumble, number 13. I have never read any of this, so I kind of coming in the tail end of things. But they have a little, like, here's what happened, here's what this is, in the front of the book. And so it kind of talks about there's an ancient god that has returned to Earth, but he's got trapped into a scarecrow body. And so then he's talking about these other people that are kind of trying to help him. So the writer of this book is John Arcudi, and the artist is David Rubin, and it is by Image. So it starts off with a woman that's kind of having a vision. Famine has been released, and so then it talks about these 2 guys that are trying to find food, and they come across a stand with this guy. They give him $100, and they're like, "Oh, you got corn?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got corn." He goes, "Take it." And so he takes he looks in the basket, and it's like this, like, half of a cob of corn, and he's like, "This is what you get for $100." He goes, "Well, you can, you don't have to take it." And so they end up taking it, and they're out grilling it. They come back to the camp, and they're with this woman that had the vision of the famine character, and they give it to her, kind of find out she's pregnant. Well, out walks this voodoo priest of some kind, or the spiritual guy, I assume. He's got like a skeleton arm, like his arm's literally like bones. But the rest of him's like, it looks human. Has a bunch of tattoos and a beard. But he kind of talks about some voodoo stuff that they need to go do. And the woman leaves one of the characters, one of the two guys that went and got the food. She leaves him, and I'm assuming it's the father of the child, because they kiss, but I don't know. Like I said, this is coming in issue number 13, so I'm coming in way deep into it. And then the two guys that are left that got the food, this dog runs out, and it's this three-legged dog, and then there's this Hydra-looking dog creature that is apparently part of their pets, and so it helps them protect their camper. Not for sure. So it cuts to the scarecrow warrior, the voodoo guy, and the pregnant woman in a field of corn. And the voodoo guy and the girl are trying to access some kind of a spiritual plane or some kind of help or resource that they're trying to tap into, and the scarecrow is watching over them while they leave their bodies. So while they leave their bodies, all these zombies, these kind of famine-infested zombies, they're not quite dead. They're just humans that are hungry, but they have like this weird zombie-esque experience with them or aura about them. So he's like, do I kill them? Do I fight them? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Are they going to stop? And then it cuts to the voodoo guy and the girl, and he starts expressing that famine came, and he's kind of spawned, and famine flicks the voodoo guy away and grabs the girl, and he starts to desiccate her and make her like wither away, which activates this child that she has inside of her that is apparently okay. So from what I gather, this goddess gave the guy, this girl's boyfriend, husband, whatever it may be, gave him a slight part of her godly powers or godly essence, which when I guess that he impregnated her was given to the child. So the child is actually part God. And so the child helps the girl fight this famine creature, and in the real world the scarecrow guy is trying to fight these people off from hurting the two characters that are left out in the spiritual realm. And she ends up using this power to stop the famine god, banishes him back, and everybody turns to in the real world. While she banishes him, she ends up creating rain, which ends up making the corn grow and makes the famine zombies kind of stop, and they get excited. So everybody gets in the car and leaves, and so they've apparently defeated famine, and that was the end of that issue. So I never. I really want to go back and read the rest of it because I have no idea who these people are. But the story was really interesting. I really liked the art. It's kind of a cartoony, distorted art, and I like that. It was very much a Saturday or Sunday comic book or Sunday newspaper strip kind of art. It was the story was intriguing enough. But unfortunately, with being number 13 and coming in like halfway through this, it is very difficult to catch on to these stories or the backstory that you don't have. And so I really want to go back and try and get caught up on this, which I've said in several videos before, is that I really like that when you come in the middle of something and it intrigues you to go and get more of them. That's the mark of a decent comic or a good comic book, is the fact that they make you want to, even though you have no idea what's going on, they make you want to know what's going on. And the writing was actually semi-decent. There was I feel like it did get a little convoluted, but because they would use references that I'm not familiar with or that I'm not for sure what the backstory is to reference that particular dialogue. So that kind of got a little threw me off a little bit. So I'm curious. I want to go back and read the rest of them, which is really interesting. So this one I would give a 3 out of 5 unicorn horns, only because I'm jumping in the middle and I have no idea what's going on. So I couldn't enjoy it fully. I couldn't jump on board of, oh my gosh, it was so good. But I definitely got to the point where I wanted to read more. So the next one I'm going to do is Trout, and it's The Hollowest Knock, and it is number 1. It is by Dark Horse Comics. The writer, story, art, and letters was Troy Nixie. So he did the whole book. I sadly, the reason why I'm reviewing this is because maybe out of my 30 subscribers, or somebody at some point will see this video and watch this and be able to tell me what the heck I read. I didn't even make it through the entire book, so it's very hard for me to review it. But unfortunately, out of 24 pages, I made it, I think, 8, and I had no idea what was going on. None. The art was so disfigured. It really was hard to keep up with the characters, like who was who, what was even going on in some of the panels. It was almost like a, I don't even know. There's some kind of baby, and there's a guy, and the baby has a disorder, and there's a ship full of people, and I don't even know. I can't even tell you what I read. And unfortunately, it got to the point where it was so odd and convoluted that I couldn't even get past to read more. So that really scares me, because it's a 4-issue miniseries, and I'm not even for sure if like the first issue anybody can get through. Which really makes me sad, because I try to give everything a chance. Even if I don't understand it, I still try to get through it and read it. But the art was atrocious, the writing was atrocious, the premise was unintelligible. I'm not for sure what it was. So unfortunately, I can't. I wish I could really promote this book for being number 1 and being somebody's work, but I don't understand it enough to be able to give it a review, sadly. So 0 out of 5 unicorn horns. I wouldn't even. This is just literally going to be a blip on my screen. But hopefully there's maybe somebody out there that can maybe either tell me to press on and try, or maybe there was something that I didn't quite understand. Like maybe there was more books on this. Like there has been in the past on some of these Dark Horse, is that there's been like another miniseries that has led into this miniseries. So maybe I just don't know enough about the other stuff, but all in all, this book was not good. It made me very sad. So sadly, I cannot give it even a good review. So let's see. I'll do one more, and then I will let people go back to the world. Let's see. I'm not for sure what I want to do. Let's do Little Bird, number 4. This one is another Image book. Image seems to be putting out some. They either put stuff out that's really good or just not good at all, and I feel like it's very hard to pick through a lot of their stuff. So this one is number 4. Again, I'm coming in the middle of something again. But this one does not make me want to read more, unfortunately, because I'm not for sure if like the premise is strong enough. So it starts off with they tell us a little story about a spider that lays eggs, and when the babies are hatched, their biggest instinct is to feed their hunger, and so they eat. They usually eat the mother. It cuts into these people that are trying to defend this, defend themselves, which they get mowed down by this religious sect. And so they cut to this woman that has these twins, and she's trying to run away. And when she does, she drops one of them. She's running away from this, looks like a pope character or a religious leader of some kind. He has a big giant red cross, and he's like this big, gown, and he's got this carrying this cross. Well, she falls and drops the babies. She grabs one of them and runs away, and then they take the other one. And when they do, they cut to apparently this particular kid is in this experiment, and so they're experimenting on him. Then it cuts to the Pope character or the religious leader talking to this nun. So the one thing I do have to say about that I did like about this book was the art style. So creepy and so weird. Everybody's got these like weird eyes, and they've got this big round everything. Like their bodies are very round, and there's not a lot of angles. So this guy's talking to this floating nun that's like this big heavyset nun, and the imagery is really interesting to look at. But all in all, it really doesn't make it any better. But it seems like to be this post-apocalyptic or futuristic world. So this priest ends up talking to this nun, leaves, and he's leading these people. Then it cuts to, I think is one of the kids, one of the babies, but he's in prison, and so he ends up escaping, killing all these guards, and there's another kid that he finds that is, I don't know, I think they're related somehow. But he has this mask on, and he has this like weird wire in his nose. So I feel like he's maybe like sickly, or he has some kind of weird thing that they're trying to stop, some kind of affliction. And he helps the other character, the prison character, get away, sort of. And the priest comes in, stops them, tries to beat the child. He ends up breaking the priest's arm and trying to escape. And he ends up being caught when he stops to look at these fields of all these dead bodies on crosses. So they inject him, and they put him back on a little gurney, and they're taking him away. Well, the other character with the mask on has the knife, and the priest is like, "You think you're gonna take me?" And he ends up kind of goes about how he became this character, and then it cuts to the prison character going out into this pit and being vaporized. And then it cuts to this guy walking through the desert. So the art was really, like I said, like really, really interesting. They had some really interesting imagery. And the fact that there wasn't a lot of angular art or areas made it a lot more almost odd and creepy, because you couldn't, I don't know, everything was a circle, or everything was rounded, and even some of the buildings, it just looks like with this stark line, it looked really odd and gave this creepy feel. I thought the art was the only interesting thing about the story. The story itself was a little weird. But then again, coming in on issue 4, I'm just not for sure if I just don't have enough information in the past, and they didn't carry over, or the fact that they that it just doesn't translate well anyways. Like, there's not a good story behind it in the first place. So sadly, it didn't intrigue me to want more, and so I will not go back and read the other 3 issues. I just kind of read this one. It was and I do feel like, unfortunately, is a throwaway one where I'm just like, meh, it's okay. So, I'm curious to see if somebody else maybe feels like differently, or if maybe I should just try to give it a chance. So if you have read that one, please, if you've read the other Little Birds and you think it's a decent book, then please, by all means, let me know, so maybe I can go back and try to see if I can jump on board. That's all the books I'm going to review for this week, but I'm going to go ahead and go over my pull list, my digital pull list, and then we will all end the video. So I'm gonna start off with Gretel, number 4 from Zenoscope. This delves into a little bit more of the Gretel and Samuel lore, like how Samuel came to be, and how Gretel ends up meeting the witch hunter character that was introduced in a couple issues ago. They kind of have a thing. You kind of learn that about her story. Again, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. Gretel is just a good book. It's fun characters, like it's a good story. It's decent art. It's not, they don't reinvent the wheel. They don't redo anything, but it's a nice twist to the lore, and it is an interesting kind of aspect that they explore. I like the fact that she has to eat hearts from the witches to get powers, and it's just good. Like, Zenoscope are just fun books, middle of the road books, so I definitely would give it a 3 out of 5 unicorn horns. Actually 3.5, almost a 4. The art was a little bit different than I feel like the other books. It almost was a little less. I think it's the same artist. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look, but for the most part, I feel like the art on this book wasn't as great as the other past issues. So I don't want to quite give it quite a 4. Really quick though, the Little Birds issue, I'd probably give a 1 out of 5 unicorn horns, just because, and again, like I said, it's not, I come in the middle of things, it's hard to jump on board, but I definitely think if you have a good book like Rumble, I think if you have a good premise and a good book, then you will definitely try to, it makes you want to go back and get them. So Sabrina the Teenage Witch, issue number 3, it was pretty good. I like the art. I like the little whimsical style. It's very much more cartoony than the other book that they came out with, the darker tone to Sabrina. I like the darker tone better. I thought it had a lot more bite to it, a little more teeth in it, that it was like something that was creepy and weird, and had a more of a spin on it that I think made the characters interesting. The art was even sketchy and weird and awkward, and so it made you feel creepy, and so I liked that book better. But this one is not bad, but it definitely has a completely different flavor. It's, a little more light, a little more whimsical, a little bit more of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of thing, but with Sabrina, a little bit more in line of the good character, good witch kind of character. So a different take, but I hope they continue on with the other book, but I don't have many hopes for it because it hasn't been out in a while. But this is an interesting spin. It's still fun. It's whimsical. Like, I feel like a young reader would be really good for this. I feel like a fantasy or superpowers, not quite superheroes, but just kind of that fantasy magic kind of feel. Something like that would really like this. So for Sabrina, I would give probably a 3.5 out of 5 unicorn horns. And like I said, the art was really good too. The story's kind of interesting. In it, she finds a little bit more about her friends. The girl that's kind of the mean girl ends up finding out more. She lives in a trailer park, and she kind of like falls in love a little bit with her brother, who is he's trying to protect his sister. Some other things happen. A little fight with this weird dragon. So it's interesting. It's got some interesting story. So if you get a chance, you may want to pick it up and see if you like it. Teen Titans number 31. I really like Teen Titans. I said it a couple times before, and I'm gonna keep praising it because I really like the characters. The team of the characters are really interesting. I feel like it is a different feel than the original Teen Titans. Obviously, because the characters are different, but they also have a little bit more of a nowadays feel to it. But it doesn't feel like they are redoing the Teen Titans again. And I'm glad that they actually made them teen characters instead of the Nightwing and Donna Troy and Arsenal, who are like adults, and they keep calling it Teen Titans, and it's not. So this one I really like, that they brought in some new teen characters, and I've really enjoyed their stories. This particular book, Lobo shows up because Crush is supposed to be part of him. Like, that's supposed to be his dad. He kind of confirms it, says that she is kind of what what she says she is, but then he just tries to destroy her, which really makes me sad because I like Crush. I think she's pretty She's fun and she's a cool character, really angry, which what teen isn't? And it I kind of wish they would have fought a little bit more, or at least had a little bit more even ground. But I really like this one. So if you haven't been reading Teen Titans and you were an old fan of the old series, you may want to try to pick this series up and see if you like it. I definitely quit the series for a while and then came back after this, and I went back and picked up the ones with this particular team and have really enjoyed them so far. Hellboy, BPRD, The Beast of Vargo. Number 1, it's a Hellboy story. Like, he goes to this place, he gets sent to this place that is supposed to be possessed by this monster or this guy that turns into a monster, and his mother tries to stop him, but he banishes her to this pit, and he ends up becoming a beast that comes back and kills people. Hellboy comes, tries to stop him. The beast beats him and throws him over the castle, and these gypsies find him and they kind of heal him. And they do it's almost like they rewrite the history by doing this puppeteering show. And they say, this is what really happened. And he's like, that's not what I remember. And they're like, well, you should go look. And so he goes back and looks, and he actually did kill the creature when he thought he didn't. It's very much a Hellboy story. The one thing that I didn't like was, it's supposed to be Hellboy and the BPRD, and the BPRD is nowhere to be seen. None of the other characters that I like are in this book at all, or at least this issue. And I would have liked that a little bit more. I think that's kind of what I thought the premise was supposed to be, so I would have liked to see more of the BPRD. So I unfortunately give this a lower rating just because it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. Although it wasn't bad, it just wasn't what I wanted. And so I give it probably 2 out of 5 unicorn horns, just because I feel like if they would have brought the BPRD in, and they could have made it a little bit more interesting for me, the big team book that I like. I read Saban's Go-Go Power Rangers Forever. Apparently this is like an annual, because I came in the middle of something. There's some kind of story that I was like, it says number 1, but it is not a number 1 issue, because they just start writing this like story that you were in the middle of, and the whole, hilarity ensues, and then they just go on, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. Apparently, Kimberly and Jason are not together, and he's actually with Trini, but they are secretly in love with together, and Trini wants to be the leader, and all this other stuff that happens. They're fighting Alpha 1, which I'm not for sure where that came from. They don't even, there's no introduction of Alpha 1. They just straight in go and fighting him, and apparently he's a big character. So I went back and looked, and it looks like this is maybe more of an annual number 1 and not a issue number 1 as far as starting the series. Although, with that being said, I kind of want to go back and read all the other books now, because this one was kind of neat. I'm like, who is this Alpha 1? Apparently he was with Zordon, and Zordon betrayed him, and he just feels like this. So, and then all this other stuff that the Trini and Jason thing, and all this other subplots that they kind of talk about, and I was like, I didn't even know this was happening. I'm invested. So now I'm gonna go back and read Power Rangers. Who knew, right? Power Rangers. I mean, who thought Power Rangers would be interesting again? I loved them when they were back in the heyday, but definitely didn't think I would pick up their book at my current position in age and status and all that stuff. But I really want to go back and read their stuff, because this particular issue does intrigue me with some of their subplots. So, and the art's pretty neat. I mean, it's a different kind of style. It's very young and youthful looking, and so I really enjoyed the art style. I think they did really good with the different Zords and the way that they combine and stuff like that. I really like this one. So I would give this one probably a 4 out of 5 unicorn horns, just because it did surprise me more than what I thought it was going to. Lumberjanes number 63. I will never stop saying enough wonderful things about Lumberjanes. The only thing I wish about Lumberjanes is they would have a more consistent art team. I get used to an artist, and then they change it, and I have to get used to that style again, because they usually change the characters' features that stand out in other books. they change them to fit their style, and it throws you off a little bit. So, but the premise of the story is so fun. I love that it's like female empowerment. It's young kids. They have different walks of life. They have different ethnicities. They have different characters that their relationships are not like, it's friendship relationships. There's love relationships. There's just family relationships. They do really well with a lot of these great things that I really enjoy. And I keep trying to get my nieces that are always on here, the hyena and the dragon, I keep trying to get them to read it because I really want them to, I would love to instill some of these values in the kids in my life, or women in general, young women in general. I really think like this is a really great book for them because it puts them in such a great light. They go on adventures. They're not afraid. They go in and they do things that are whimsical and fun and magical, and it's just a really empowering way to look at life. And I really like that. I feel like this is just a good book in general. So I will never stop saying anything bad, or I will never start saying anything bad about Lumberjanes until they really mess it up, except for the art. Again, if they would find a more consistent art team, I think I would, like, this would be probably one of my books that I would, like, well, I still praise it to the heavens because it still has a good message and still has some great writing and some fun characters. So I still say 5 out of 5 unicorn horns, even though the art's not my favorite. But the story is actually worth it. Black Badge number 11, they kind of in a story arc. They have been fighting, that they've been rotten within the Black Badges, and so it kind of comes to a head to where they fight the people that have been kind of just trying to stop them. They show some of the people that are, that started the Black Badges, and like they're trying to improve it, and they stop the kind of bad guy, quote unquote, which is one of the characters. The character that you thought was dead comes back, and it ends up the bad guy is his dad that's kind of trying to ruin things, and his dad was one of the original Black Badges that is, trying to turn it into something that's not helpful with the world. So I really like this book. I feel like it's very similar to the Lumberjanes, where I wish their art team was a little bit different, but at least with this one, their art team is consistent, so you can tell the character is a certain character because they have certain characteristics. Like there's an African American boy, there is a boy with like a black bowl cut, there is a girl trying to be a boy, and she's got this big giant bushy red hair. There's a guy with a mullet and a hat, and so they give them characteristics to where you can follow who they are. However, sometimes the secondary characters get a little bit jumbled and get a little bit lost in that art style because it is very sketchy, it is not very detailed, and so a lot of times some of these people that you're like, oh, I'm supposed to recognize this character, but if it wasn't like talking about it in the dialogue, I would have no idea who this person is. So I do wish there was a little bit better art style, but at least they stay consistent to where it doesn't jar you from trying to figure out people again and again. But it is a really good story, very espionage, kind of interesting take on things. So if you get a chance, I think it would definitely be worth picking up. I'd say 5 out of 5 unicorn horns. It is a really good one. The Warning, that was an interesting book. It was by Image again. Image again coming out with some weird stuff. They have, I don't know if, again, I don't know if I came in a middle of a story arc or how that works. It is issue 8, so I'm jumping on board something, but I didn't understand what was going on. They're fighting this creature. There's this guy that kind of has like a superpowers sort of something. They are apparently soldiers, and then all of a sudden they're fighting this creature. They kind of stop it, and then they explode the bomb, and they jump in this truck, and this person on a motorcycle shows up. So I apparently have missed a lot of stuff that I have no idea what's happened. But unfortunately with this particular book, it did not make me want to go back and look, read more. And I have to say that the cover has like this robot girl and this kind of alien-esque creature on the front with this like a sword on the back of him and this really cool like collar. They are not even in the book. So I don't know why the cover is the cover. It's threw me off. I was literally thought I was gonna get into some sci-fi fantasy something or other, and it's not. It's like some militaristic monster hunters. No idea. But 2 out of 5 unicorn horns. The art was okay. The book, the dialogue was okay. It's not that I was lost. I just was lost with the story, not with actual what happened in the book. So all in all, it just didn't come across very well with an issue 8. It doesn't make me want to go back and read more. Rat Queens, number 16. This, however, on the other hand, makes me want to go back and read more. So they are pretty hysterical. It is an all-female like mercenary group, and they all have like their little personalities. There's a little elf that's just like drunk and cussing all the time. There's like a goddess character, a magic user, a human that just doesn't feel like she's belongs in this group because she's just kind of this plain Jane. And then there's this monstrous orc girl. In the book, they have this guy takes over this kingdom by killing off this like peaceful king and takes over his stuff. They fight this monster, and the little elf girl is like strung out. So they end up having this intervention. She goes on a detox, and it ends up they get invaded by this particular character. King Harry is the guy that I guess that's killed off this prince or this king and took over his kingdom. I don't know if he's supposed to be a character from the other ones, but I really want to go back and read them just because this book is so fun. The dialogue is just funny, and the characters are interesting and weird, and I mean, like a little elf character that needs an intervention because she's always drunk and throwing up because she can't fight. Then the elf that is a magic user, she's lost her arm, and so I have no idea how that happened, but it really makes me want to go back and figure it out because it's just fun. Like, and they're like they cuss and they have like they're all false. They never are able to accomplish anything that they want to accomplish. They end up never getting paid for any of the things. Really fun book. I really like that. And again, mark of a good book makes me want to go back and read more. I really want to go back and read more now after just reading 16. And the story and the art are really interesting and talented. The dialogue's really fun. Just a really good book all around. I'd say 5 out of 5 unicorn horns. Because it does make me laugh also, which is a mark of a good book, I think, is if you can pull off humor without having the timing of like a TV show or a movie. I feel like that's really awesome, like especially with the one-liners and the expressions of people. So they do really well with all that. So Rat Queens is really a good book. Fair Lady, number 3. I thought I'd quit this book a long time ago, but for some reason I keep picking it up because it's just okay. The art's just okay. The stories are just okay. It's like these little mysteries. It's almost like watching Murder, She Wrote, where it was you watched it because it was Murder, She Wrote, and you knew that there was going to be a murder. Angela Lansbury's going to be there. She going to figure it out. At the end, she going to reveal the killer. Like it was like the same formula. This kind of how this book is. It's just like there's a mystery of some kind. She goes out and does something, and then she figures it out. I wish there was a little bit more of an underlying arc that maybe there was that would keep you a little bit more interested in, but there's not. But they have in this particular issue they talk about this this guy that she's trying to find. She gets hired to find him. Ends up he's not really the guy he says he was, but she finds him anyways. And they do like this Thundar the Barbarian knockoff, and then Ariel and Ukla came in, and hilarity ensues, and she figures out this mystery. So, I mean, it's just okay. The art's good, story's okay. 3 out of 5 unicorn horns, nothing special. Excellence, I feel like this is just a weird book. I really feel like the premise was really odd in the first book, and then in this book, I don't feel like it got any better. I still feel like the wording, the dialogue is very... almost like you need a glossary to figure out what the words are that they're talking about. I don't know if it's the way it's written or if there's if that's part of the lore that they're trying to establish. but they just really jump right in, and there's no establishing what's going on, or why it's this way. It's just like with Harry Potter, I feel like you learned about a spell and then you kind of realized, why it was there or what it did. And in this book, it's kind of like, nope, we're just going to do things and hope you figure them out. And it gets very confusing, and I want to jump on board this because the art is so good. I love the art. It's like this Afro-American vibe, and it's got these really cool hip pants. Like, he's got these little jogger pants on, these cool like robes with this hood, and I mean, everybody looks so sleek, and the fashion is really neat, and the magic, the wands are really cool. The backgrounds are really, really neat. The colors are interesting. Like, I really feel like they have a really good vibe as far as the art and the feel of the book. I just don't feel like the dialogue is there. It's just really confusing and odd, and I don't even know what's going on half the time. Like, he's going in to find the scroll to help his grandmother, but then he jumps through these cubes that I guess is like some kind of elevator. But then, and the other thing is, like, they flash back and forth. And the flash back and forth get really confusing too, because you're like, are they, like, why is this here? But then it kind of connects, but it doesn't quite connect as well. I really feel like this book, unfortunately, it hurts itself, and it's just not that good. So 2 out of 5 unicorn horns. The art is really excellent. I really, really like the artist, and I really like the feel of the book as far as the art team. But I don't know I don't want to read more, but I was hoping the second issue would give me a little bit more, and didn't. Journey into Mystery. This, on the other hand, is actually kind of fun. It is a War of the Realms tie-in. It's number 5. It's this quirky little team of all these weird Marvel, like, secondary characters that they put together to save or to help protect the Thor's sister. But come to find out, in this book, you find out that Thor's sister actually is gathering an army. They went on this adventure, and they met all these different people, like these henchmen and the Skrulls, and then these ghost people in this ghost town. And come to find out, the baby has been leading them, like pushing them and nudging them the way she wants them to go, so that she could build an army to protect herself and her family. And so at the end of this book, they come in, and Ares has found the baby finally, but then they kind of convince Ares to join them, and they kind of realize that the army, or all these people, come to protect them and help them. They're going to go fight Ares, but then they find out that they realize that the baby has been actually building this army, and so now they're going to go and help fight. But the characters are so much fun. The dialogue is really interesting. They have some really quirky jokes and the quirky characters that kind of make it a little bit more fun. So I thought this book was actually really decent. I'm not a huge crossover person. I don't like crossovers. I don't like tie-ins. I feel like half the time the crossovers usually don't have weight into the real world. They just are what they are, and they are a way to make money. Even the tie-ins, like, I feel like the tie-ins are just like extra books to buy and read. But with this one, I actually really enjoyed. I really think it's a fun book. The art's really decent. The art's really good. I like it. The characters are really fun and quirky. So it's just an interesting book. I really enjoyed it. So 4 out of 5 unicorn horns. The Unstoppable Wasp. I think it's getting ready to end. It's definitely a young reader book. AIM has invaded this science fair, and so the 2 different wasps and all of her friends are trying to stop them. There's not a complicated, it's not very intricate, but it does deal with some issues. It is some fun stuff, and I like some of the characters, and so I really enjoy it, but it is a lighthearted, more whimsical feel to it. It's definitely not something that's really heavy. I can see kind of why it's not going to hold weight and not going to be a huge, like I said, it's getting canceled, and I can see why it probably may not have pull in the readership that it needs to, from just the premise is very, like I said, whimsical and kind of not as dark. It skews to more of a younger audience, which, I think comic books are slowly dying with the younger audience. So it's just, but it's still fun. I enjoyed it. It's like, if you like the characters, it is a good read. It's something that's fun to download and read and not feel like you're too bogged down by a lot of stuff. So I give it a 4 out of 5 unicorn horns. because it's in my wheelhouse and something that I enjoy, and something you don't always have to have a deep meaning behind a book, and so I really like that aspect of it. I read Afterburn Crossfire #2, which I don't think is. I feel like it's supposed to be out last week, but for some reason it came out digitally this week. So I read it, and it's about these people that are. I didn't read issue 1, so I'm not for sure if I'm going to get the exact premise right. But it feels like there's a post-apocalyptic world. God has tasked these people, these military people, to go get these artifacts. They are fighting against these church people, or the mutants that are. Part of the Vatican is mutated, and some of the other people in the world have mutated, and so they're trying to get the artifacts. So these two factions are trying to get all these religious artifacts, and they split up the team in this group, or in this book, and one team gets captured and the other guy gets the stuff, and he's trying to get to his team because he's realized he's made a mistake. So in this book, though, the art is atrocious. It's like, I can't tell who is who. There's apparently a female in there, and half the time I can't tell she's a female. I always think she's part of I think she's one of the other male characters. The mutants, it's so washed out, like I don't know if it's the coloring or the inking or the actual style of the art. It just, everything looks so basic and washed out that it's so hard to tell some of the characters from each other. It's just not good, and it really hurts the book. And as far as the premise, it's not interesting. Like, it's not that. I feel like if they had this book with a different premise and they built up to this particular story, would have been more interesting. But with it just being, this is the story, I'm not that interested in it. It's not that big of a deal. So I say 1 out of 5 unicorn horns. If they maybe even had some better art, then maybe I could get on board with. I might have it a bigger score, but unfortunately the art's not great, the story's not great. It's just, I don't know, wasn't my thing. So that's all I've read. I didn't get to read any of my regular books, but those are always on my list. I'll have them read by next week. But until then, I really wish, please like, share, and subscribe. Spread the word. We would love to have more readers or subscribers and comments. We are also having our book club next week. So next week I will have 2 videos. I will have my weekly review show, and then we'll also do our book club, and where we will talk about Sword of Ages and pick a new book for the next month. So if you get a chance, we would love to have you for that also. And if you can, spread the word, like, share, subscribe, bell notifications. We would greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate all the subscribers I have now. I know there's not many, but thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for the people that watch my videos. I know there's lots of stuff on YouTube, so you taking the time or even just giving me the view is fun, and it makes my heart a little happy. So thank you for your time, and until next week, we hope your pull list is full. Bye!